up, YouTube? Love you guys. Here's a bearded Canadian kiss for you guys. That's a little awkward. So we're going to be talking about how to stay motivated and achieve your goals, especially over the long term. If you found yourself setting a goal, you get really, really excited, and then after a while, the grind sets in, the rubber meets the road, and actually executing that goal, you find yourself like, hey, maybe you wanted to lose weight or build a business or whatever it was, and then by the time you get into it, you're like, fuck this shit. And I'm part of a couple of really amazing high-level goal writing communities where they're private communities. We're sharing each other's goals, help each other. A couple of the people there are billionaires. There's people earning $100 million and all kinds of really cool, amazing entrepreneurs. So this is going to contain, this video, like a whole bunch of those really high-level secrets that nobody really talks about, both for staying motivated and actually achieving those goals. And if you've ever found yourself like some of my friends where they go to like a Tony Robbins event and after like 3 days they could like basically march into like a Braveheart war, they're like, rah, you know, only the greatest movie ever made. But after they find themselves, after a week and normal life has set in and the grind has set in, there's another part of them that's like, I do not want to get out of bed and fucking exercise. Where the fuck is my coffee? So if you found yourself like that, this video is going to be just downright amazing for you. So without further ado, let's do it. So before we get into the really, really good stuff, let's talk about the fact that the most important thing to understand is motivation is a bullshit idea. It is a transient state, and it often comes after the fact that you've started taking action, is that the motivation comes along after you've already made the decision in the face of unmotivation, which is different than how most people think it is. They think they just, like people who wake up really early to exercise, they just wake up and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to exercise today. Usually it's like, oh, I don't want to do it today. And they do it anyway. And they find after 5 or 10 minutes that that's when the motivation starts to set in. They go, actually, I'm really glad I did this. So on that pro tip is David Goggins. If you've ever read the book, Can't Hurt Me, he's a Navy SEAL who's just done some crazy, crazy amount of shit and holds a bunch of world records. He recommends just doing something for 5 minutes of action. And what you'll find is that after 5 minutes, most of the time the motivation will come along. So the cure to being unmotivated is just do it anyway. Probably not what you want to hear, but truth nonetheless. So second thing, and this is the most important part of it, is there's a big, big difference between motivation and inspiration. And to be inspired is a more permanent state that underlines all your action. It is about finding a deep reason why. So for example, I have many, many different inspirations, but one of those is I want to provide an amazing life for my 2 beautiful daughters. And that is something that for me is very near and dear to my heart. And I'm sure you have somebody equivalent in your own life who means something to you that is, you know, one of the underlying reasons why you get up and do what you do to make a better life, to become a better version of you, and why you set those goals in the first place. And that's important because whether I'm tired that day and I didn't get enough sleep or I don't feel well, is the inspiration to want to make a better life from them is always there. And so it doesn't change as much as motivation, which is this really up and down state that comes and goes. And if you're waiting for it to come before you can take action, you're gonna have a really hard time. So one of the things that we always do in our workshops that's really, really powerful for our clients is to really just connect with every reason why you want those goals in the first place and go levels and levels deeper other than the surface level, like, hey, I want a bunch of money or I want to have 6-pack abs. But why do you want to have 6-pack abs? Why do you want to have a bunch of money? Like, who are you really going to change and who are you going to really impact and how do you really want to show up in the world? And what you'll find is when you connect with your inspiration is motivation almost becomes irrelevant. And you'll find that when the difficulty set in, your reasons why raise you up to meet those challenges in a way that motivation cannot. So the third most important thing is people you keep. And if you're surrounding yourself with a whole bunch of people that are negative and complain about life and are victim-y or just apathetic, or what I call dream stealers, people who tell you why your ideas can't work and why you should be more practical and be more realistic. Fuck that, by the way. Will Smith says that he never had a plan B because he wasn't seriously considering the possibility that he would ever fail on plan A. So what most people don't realize, and Jim Carrey says it's really awesome, is that you can still fail on your plan B. He actually experienced this where his dad became an accountant, wanted security for his family, and after 20 years or something like that, his firm no longer had the business, laid him off, he was out in the street. You can most definitely in this world fail at plan B. So while people may tell you your plan B is more practical, you need to be all in on plan A. And so it's very, very important to surround yourself with really high quality people that encourage your dreams, that further them, that share in that possibility, and that really just make you feel good about being you. And so a couple of the tips that I've found that can really help you with that is just to join some free communities that stand for things that you want to be part of. So personally, I'm in like communities for advertising, for growing a business, for spirituality, for health, for juicing, for cool ideas to do locally in the area, things like that, where people are building me up and filling me up, because the biggest source of who you're going to become in your life is your people around you. And you can always, the beautiful thing about the internet is you can be in Frog Balls, Arkansas, and as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can surround yourself with beautiful, amazing people. So do it, and it's free. Okay, next amazing thing, and nobody really talks about this, but one of the things I've found is that when you get in these like really high level business where you're dealing with people who are doing 10 million, 100 million, sometimes even like one of the people I was at the last one was doing 800 million in his business, almost a billionaire, and will surely get there. One of the things you learn is that they have a very different set of inner dialogue, and a lot of times people are looking for the perfect answer, and what I've realized is that the really high level people actually keep really good questions to ask themselves over and over, because they know if they ask themselves the right question, they'll come up with good answers too. So to be like really raw and real and vulnerable with you, there was a time like before I got into my shamanic healing, probably about 12 years ago, where I was really depressed. I was like, just didn't believe in myself, and I was very anxious. And I remember when things wouldn't go my way, I would ask myself questions like, why isn't it working out? Why are you such a fucking loser? What's the problem now? What are you bitching about? And that was the internal dialogue. And what's going to happen for you if you're asking yourself, any kind of these questions, more often than not, any kind of why question like that is looking for somebody to blame. So you're gonna find all the reasons why things aren't working. That's very different than a question I might ask myself now, which is, how can I solve this easily, gracefully, in a way that's totally harmonious, where I'm grateful, and maybe even get the answer from somebody else who's already solved this. So one of the powerful questions I want to give you is from Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, and this is a really, really beautiful question to ask yourself over and over, which is, what is the one thing I could do now such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? Now I'll repeat that again, just so you can get that. But what is the one thing I can do now such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or unnecessary? And it forces you to focus on the one action that is basically going to make the biggest difference, and to really, really focus your efforts where they're going to matter. So part of staying motivated is really just asking yourself questions that are going to lead to productive outcomes, because either way, whether you ask yourself, why did I fuck this up, or how can I solve this gracefully, and what's the one thing I can do to resolve this, either way your mind's going to come up with an answer. And so the questions you ask yourself all day long are going to ultimately determine your outputs. And so one of the things you want to do is ask yourself better questions repeatedly in terms of your internal dialogue, because it'll change what happens for you on the outside. Now, part of where a lot of people lose motivation is this next one, which is just staying fucking healthy. If you live in America, there's an abundance of fast food and shitty options. And there was a time in my life personally where I lived on fast food. When I was in my college days, I knew what every special day was. Whoppers are only 99 cents today. Let's go buy 20 Whoppers. And as sad as this is how I really ate. And then I went through a period in my life where I went to the extreme other, where I was like, if it's not bio-organic, I'm not eating it. I need to personally know the farmer who made this. And what I found is neither one of those extremes really personally worked for me, and I don't think they work for most people who are watching this. So I like to think that it's really, really important that the highest choice of food that you put into your body, because it's literally going to change how you feel in the day. But I like to look at it as 80-20, and so my simple rule is 80% of the time, eat really good stuff that's going to build you up and feels good to you. But 20% of the time, just allow yourself to be human and do human things. And don't try to beat perfection, because then what ends up happening is then if you try and be perfect, then if you slip and eat a cookie, then you beat yourself up. And you're like, wow, dummy, why did you eat that cookie? And then you end up like, oh, I'll eat the whole box. The train's off the tracks. I screwed up. And so put 80% of good stuff in your body. And what you'll find is it'll raise your energy level, and you'll be naturally more inclined just to achieve and hit those goals, and you'll be more inspired in a natural state. I found that by doing that, my natural mental state is just clarity, and you're able to operate so much better. So I think it'll have the same effect for you. Last one, and this is really, really important, is the routines you keep day to day. So what does your morning look like? What does your evening look like? What do you do to get ready? What do you do to get yourself in state? All the peak performers I know, by the way, have both a morning ritual and an evening ritual. And this is really, really interesting, because I remember reading about Stephen King, and the first thing he does every morning is he writes for 4 to 6 hours uninterrupted, and does not allow anybody to interrupt his writing process. And I remember somebody saying, oh, well, of course he gets to write like that, he's Stephen King. But I remember asking the question, which is, does he get to write like that because he's Stephen King, or is he Stephen King because he follows this habit? And I would suggest to you it's the latter. It's that we're all the product of our everyday habits, behaviors, and especially the mental diet you're putting into yourself. So all the top performers that I know, the peak entrepreneurs who have real deep reasons why and are really inspired and connected, and not just like set goals, but achieve them really regularly with ease and effortlessness, and bring together teams, and they lead people. One of the things that I've found is that they're really, really good at having great habits and sticking to them and feeding themselves mental diet over and over. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I'm not telling you to do one over the other. You just need to do what works. One of those, you can write your goals. You can create little mental movies, like literally like a video where you watch it and it reminds you of what you want over and over. You can listen to affirmations over and over and over. But again, where most people fail is they think this is something you do just once. And I would suggest to you, if you want to be one of those top people and really make a difference in the world and achieve your goals and do that, is that you need to religiously be in that space of having great habits. Every single day you need to be doing that. So just to really recap really quickly, motivation is an egoic state. Inspired is a much more deeper, more profound state. Shoot to be inspired, which means connecting with your why, being around really amazing people, having amazing routines, taking care of your health but not being militant. So if you're interested, by the way, I have something totally awesome for you below, and I'll put a link for you below in the description, as well as in the first comments. I'll pin it. It's totally free and you can download it. This is for you if you want to find your real inspiration for doing this. Now, what we find, a lot of the people that we help, they're making money and doing it either through a job or a business, but what they find is it's doesn't really represent them. And when they think one day they're going to look back at their tombstone, they go, this is not how I want to have spent my life. And so they want to do something deeper and more fulfilling, and often they have tons and tons of talents, but they're not necessarily a master of any one thing. If that's you and you want to make a badass laptop income in like solving that problem, building a business where you get to really help the world, then click the link below and go ahead and download that. You'll need to enter your name and email, and of course don't forget to subscribe, because we've got tons of more cool videos coming for you.